Hello everyone, here's part 2 of my Monsterverse What If series, The Birth of Biollante. As the Osaka Monarch headquarters nears completion, a large explosion goes off on site. Apex agents descend on the area and begin combing the rubble for G-cells. Monarch forces quickly jump into action and the two groups engage in a firefight. After some back and forth, Monarch pushes Apex back and clears them from the area. The Monarch forces rush to the debris looking for survivors. They find Dr. Shiragami holding his daughter's plant in the rubble. Dr. Shiragami, in critical condition, is rushed to the hospital. Dr. Shiragami was overseeing the construction of his team's laboratory before the explosion went off. Thankfully, Dr. Shiragami recovers from his injuries. Once home, he locks himself in his personal laboratory. Before the Apex attack, Dr. Shiragami took some G-cells and hid them in his home laboratory. One night, the sky lights up with what looks to be shooting stars. Dr. Shiragami watches in amazement but quickly gets back to work. Locked inside and driven crazy by the bombing, Dr. Shiragami takes a piece of his daughter's plant and splices it with a G-cell. The cells slowly combine under the microscope, handing Dr. Shiragami a major success. However, by the end of the week, Dr. Shiragami is found dead, strangled by mysterious green vines. Monarch arrives at Dr. Shiragami's home. As the team walks through the house, they get report of a giant space titan rampaging through London. The team makes it into Dr. Shiragami's lab. They discover it destroyed, covered in mysterious vines and green liquid. They decide to take as many samples as possible back to US headquarters for analysis. A new titan in London and now this, one team member remarks as they gather samples of vine and green liquid. When the team arrives back at headquarters, they learn that the titan that attacked London is called Space Godzilla, and currently he is fighting Godzilla in Fukuoka. The team submits its findings for analysis. As they wait for the results, they watch Godzilla, Space Godzilla, and now Kong go at it. Everyone hopes Space Godzilla will be defeated but are stunned when he manages to get away. Godzilla and Kong head out for now but are ready for a rematch. As Monarch finishes up its analysis of the now dead vines, they discover that they are made up of both plant and Godzilla cells. Stunned, Mark worries about the emergence of another Titan. With Space Godzilla still a threat, Mark moves to make the repairs to the Super Heave a top priority. A week goes by without a Space Godzilla sighting. Mark thinks that this must mean that Space Godzilla was weakened when Godzilla and Kong blew up his shoulder crystal. Mark believes Space Godzilla is somewhere healing and will return once he has regained himself. Mark knows he doesn't have much time, but thankfully a lot of progress has been made on the Super Heave repairs. After 2 weeks, another Monarch team arrives at Dr. Shiragami's lab for more testing. When they get to the lab, the team discovers the house is completely destroyed. They inspect the area and notice a trail of destruction that leads all the way to Osaka Bay. They inform Mark that on the path there are traces of the green liquid that they found on their first visit. Knowing this has to be connected to the vines found in Dr. Shiragami's lab, Mark rushes to Japan. When Mark arrives, a mysterious 300-foot rose dubbed Biollante by the Japanese news sprouts up in Osaka Bay. Mark is taken via helicopter to monitor the mysterious flower titan from a distance. Mark looks in amazement. He takes out a device that uses the Orca technology. Mark uses it to determine if Biollante is sending out any kind of signal. Mark sees that Biollante is trying to communicate. In fact, he sees that this titan is calling out to Godzilla. Mark understands that this probably has something to do with the fact that Biollante is partially made up of G-cells. Mark heads back to land and tries to figure out if Godzilla will respond to this new Titan's call. Late at night, the waters in Osaka Bay begin to ripple violently. Ships in the area are flipped over by the waves. Biollante becomes aware and moves its vines across the ocean floor. Eventually, Godzilla arrives in Osaka. He makes his way into Osaka Bay. Godzilla sees Biollante's flowers sitting in the water. Confused, Godzilla roars at Biollante. Large vines shoot out of the water and grab Godzilla's legs and arms. They wrap around him and strangle him. One vine wraps around Godzilla's mouth, keeping it shut. Godzilla rips up the vines, but more vines shoot up and overwhelm Godzilla. Godzilla struggles with the amount of vines and falls into the ocean. Monarch forces look on confused. Eventually, Godzilla gets up and fires his atomic breath. It lights up Biollante. Godzilla fires his breath a few more times and Biollante's flower explodes. Its spores travel up into space. Godzilla roars and then heads back out to sea. A few months go by and abnormal plant life begins blooming aggressively all over Earth's surface. The plant life grows at an alarming rate and invades various cities across the globe, causing mass destruction, making them uninhabitable. Monarch begins investigating destroyed and overgrown cities all over the world. They discover that Biollante is responsible for the chaos. Eventually, Biollante's spores return back to Earth. They touch down in the countryside near Osaka. The spores come down and create Biollante's second form, which is similar to the Heisei Biollante's second form. Biollante emerges and roars in the countryside. She calls out to Godzilla again, but inadvertently calls Space Godzilla as well. Biollante sends her roots down into the hollow earth, which disrupt the ecosystem below. Stunned, Kong walks over and inspects the roots. Angered, Kong tries chopping down the roots, but they are too strong. He decides to go to the surface to figure out what's going on. On the surface, Biollante moves towards the city of Osaka. It's estimated she will reach it by morning. With Space Godzilla, Biollante, Godzilla, and Kong all converging on Osaka, Monarch launches the Super Heave into action, in an attempt to slow down Biollante and evacuate as many citizens as possible. The Super Heave makes its way into the countryside and engages Biollante. Biollante swats it away with its vines. The Super Heave fires lasers that cut some of Biollante's vines. As Biollante struggles with the Super Heave, she slowly but surely gets closer to Osaka. Constantly swatting the Super Heave away, Biollante fires her acidic sap. Some of the sap hits the Super Heave and it begins to smoke. Biollante's roots begin ripping up the hollow earth as she makes her way to Osaka. Before exiting the hollow earth, Kong takes his axe and begins chopping down some of Biollante's mouthed vines. Unfortunately, they keep regrowing as fast as he cuts them down. Back on the surface, Biollante has just made it into Osaka and begins leveling the city completely. She wades into the city, destroying building after building, her vines smashing everything in sight. Biollante fires her acidic sap and obliterates city block after city block. Biollante gets into the center of Osaka. She roars out. The surrounding city becomes even more overgrown with plant life. Biollante begins spraying more sap and sprays it upwards into the air. Biollante gets ready to transform into its third form, an even larger version of its second. Mark has the Super Heave keep its distance so it can assist Godzilla and Kong once they arrive. Out in Osaka Bay, Godzilla arrives. He roars and wades onto shore. He looks and sees an enormous 450-foot Biollante. Biollante completes its transformation and roars back at Godzilla. The two look at each other. Godzilla charges at Biollante, but Biollante puts up her vines and knocks Godzilla down. Godzilla goes back and forth with Biollante's vines, constantly getting up and being knocked down again. Biollante gets closer to Godzilla, hoping to consume him for his G-cells and become even larger. Godzilla fights back and fires his atomic breath, but it barely leaves a mark. Biollante is able to spawn an overwhelming amount of vines that keep Godzilla tied down to the street. Biollante gets closer and closer as she gets ready to consume him. Godzilla fires his atomic breath again and hits Biollante's mouth. Godzilla is freed. Enraged, Biollante fires her acidic sap and burns Godzilla. Godzilla is stunned and falls back into a building. Biollante regains herself and uses her vines to keep Godzilla down on the ground. Biollante gets closer and begins absorbing Godzilla into herself. Biollante shoots her vines into Godzilla, one into his hand, one into his leg, and the other into his dorsal plate. Godzilla roars out in agony. Biollante fires more of her sap. Finally, Kong arrives swinging his axe and pushes Biollante back. Kong frees Godzilla and the two look at each other. Godzilla is relieved and ready to fight now that Kong has arrived. The two take on Biollante. Godzilla fires his atomic breath and Kong gets behind Biollante and jumps at her with his axe. Biollante is damaged, but is able to regain herself and impales Kong with her vines. Kong's axe falls, and Biollante throws Kong down to the ground. Godzilla hits her with his atomic breath, freeing Kong. Biollante spits her sap at Godzilla, which stuns him, and then Biollante impales Kong again. As the three monsters struggle, large explosions can be heard off in the distance. Space Godzilla lets out a loud roar. His crystals begin popping up throughout Osaka as he gets closer to Biollante. Space Godzilla lands and sees Godzilla and Kong. He picks them up telepathically and gets them away from Biollante. Mark watches the feed and notices that Space Godzilla's shoulder crystal still hasn't healed. He believes if Godzilla and Kong destroy the other one, Space Godzilla will be defeated. Godzilla and Kong get back up and dodge Space Godzilla's Corona Beam and Biollante's vines. Kong smashes Biollante's vines with his axe, and Godzilla fires his atomic breath at Space Godzilla. Mark calls in the Super Heave, which begins firing its arsenal of weapons. Biollante swats the Super Heave away and fires its sap at Kong, stunning him. Space Godzilla overpowers Godzilla and gets him down on the ground. Monarch fears that all is lost and Godzilla and Kong will lose to Biollante and Space Godzilla. Godzilla fires his atomic breath repeatedly and pushes Biollante back. Kong takes advantage of this and finds his axe. Kong smashes Biollante with his axe and Godzilla fires his atomic breath. Biollante is critically injured. Sensing this, Space Godzilla flies overhead and rains down his Corona Beam, hurting Godzilla and Kong. Godzilla and Kong struggle with Space Godzilla and Biollante until Godzilla and Kong are thrown back again. Biollante roars triumphantly. Godzilla is able to get close and fires his atomic breath repeatedly into Biollante's mouth. Kong gets up and quickly deals some fatal blows to Biollante with his axe from behind. Biollante begins bleeding all over Osaka. Space Godzilla roars and gets aggressive. He fires his Corona Beam and throws crystals at Godzilla and Kong. Godzilla and Kong are unable to get close to Space Godzilla and Biollante. Mark orders the Super Heave to open its fire mirror and get close to Space Godzilla. The Super Heave moves in to engage before Space Godzilla fires his Corona Beam. The Super Heave opens its fire mirror. Space Godzilla fires at the Super Heave. The fire mirror reflects the attack. The attack bounces back and hits Space Godzilla and damages some of his surrounding crystals. Godzilla and Kong look encouraged. Godzilla begins destroying crystals with his atomic breath. Kong tries to get behind Biollante to finish her once and for all. Space Godzilla fires at the Super Heave and his attack is reflected back again. Space Godzilla roars out in pain. He swipes the Super Heave with his tail, knocking it out of range. Godzilla fires his atomic breath, burning up the last of Biollante's vines. Kong starts to get behind her. Space Godzilla throws a crystal at Godzilla, knocking him down to the ground. Godzilla fires his atomic breath, but misses and hits the Super Heave's fire mirror. Mark realizes that they could try and reflect Godzilla's atomic breath and blow up Space Godzilla's shoulder crystal. Mark has the Super Heave adjust its position. Godzilla, still on the ground, fires his breath again. It hits the mirror. The Super Heave maneuvers itself and redirects the attack at Space Godzilla's shoulder crystal. It explodes, causing Space Godzilla to collapse to the ground. Kong gets behind Biollante and slams his axe into the back of her head. Godzilla fires his atomic breath into her mouth, and Biollante explodes. Biollante's spores go into outer space, and it is predicted that Biollante will return someday. Godzilla and Kong are pleased with their teamwork and part ways. Godzilla and Kong say goodbye as they go off. Back in Osaka, teams begin scanning the debris and rubble in the area to gather more information on the Titans. During the survey, a Monarch crew notices that the large corpse of Space Godzilla is gone. They scan the area to look for clues. A member calls out that they found something. The member brings over a damaged sticker for the rest of the crew to look at. Confused, they read it out aloud. Property of Bio Major. The team rushes to inform Mark.